Hello chess friends and welcome to another game analysis. Here we have a game from the round 2 of Netanya Master Tournaments, and with the white pieces we have Postny Evgeny, with the black pieces Nabaty Tamir. So Evgeny opens the game with the d4, Tamir continue with the d5. After that we have c4 and e6, so this is queen gambit declined, and knight to c3, a6, and then Evgeny decided to capture on d5. After that, black capture on d5, so now black is able to develop his bishop from the square c8 using the squares e6, f5, and g4. After that, white developed bishop on f4, very good position for that bishop, and Tamir developed bishop from the square c8 to e6. Then we have e3, and bishop to d6, offering bishop for trade. Knight from g to e2. Idea with this bishop is to trade, and after that he can go with the knight on square f4. So knight to f6. We have bishop capture on d6, queen capture d6, and then knight to f4, which is very good position for a knight. White is making a lot of pressure on the pawn on d5 right now, and also he can transpose this knight from the square f4 to square d3, and after that to e5 if he wants. So we have knight to c6. After that, develop bishop on square e2, preparing the bishop for the square f3 in the future, and bishop to f5. We have castle, and then rook to c1. It is very good position for the rook, and white can make attack using the c file. So he in the future he can move the knight from the square c3. For example, he can go on square a4, and after that to c5. So we have a rook from f to d8, and after that bishop to f3. We have knight to e7, and then a3, preparing for b4. So g6, and knight to d3. Right now this knight on the d3 is very useful, so he can go on the square e5 or square c5. So bishop capture the knight on the d3, after that queen's capture, and then c6. Knight a4. So this knight is looking for the squares b6 and c5. We have knight to f5, after that knight to c5, and that knight from the square c5 he's attacking the pawn on the b7. So queen to e7, defending the pawn, and queen b3. One more time, increase the pressure on the pawn on b7. So knight to d6, and a rook from f to e1. We have a rook to e8, and then knight to d3. After that a5, queen to c2, and then king to g7. It is time to open the white king, so he played g3, and then knight go to d7. We have bishop to g2. He probably wants to move this bishop from the square g2 to h3, where he can be also very useful. And after that f5. And black decided to take control over the square e4, and he put the pawn on the square f5. So he makes a really good support for the square e4. But white play a4. After that we have g5. So with 2 pawns on f5 and g5, he tried to push f4 in the good moment. So Evgeny decided to play f4 and put the pawn on the square f4. From that square he's controlling e5, which is a very good square for his knights. In the future he will move the knight from the d3 to e5. We have g4, after that knight to e5, and then knight to f6. So h3, opening the king side with that move, g capture on h3, and then bishop capture h3, which create a very weak pawn here on the f5 and a weak pawn on the g3. So knight from f to e4 attacks the pawn on the g3. So queen to h2, defend the pawn, and after that Tamir played the move rook from e8 to g8. So he wants to use the g file for his future attack on the white king, and this is the good moment to transpose the rook on that file. So in the future he will just move the king out of this g file, like the king to g8 to h8, sorry, and he will create a strong attack on the pawn on g3. So here Evgeny make a big mistake. So he played rook to e2, and that gives a chance to Tamir to sacrifice his knight on a g3, so he can capture on a g3. So let's see, what if the queen capture? If queen capture on g3, you'll just move the king out of the g file, and white will lose the queen. Instead of that, he can go with the king, with the bishop on the square g4, and after that, black will capture. So if we count the material, we can see that black is a pawn up. So instead of that, move rook to e2. So he could play something like g4, which is a good line. After black capture, bishop capture, and this is a decent position for the white, so he can in the future move the king from the g1 to h1, and after that put the rook on a g file, so he can go with the rook on g1. But he played rook to e2. After that, Tamir capture on g3, so we have rook to g2, and king goes to h8. So once again he cannot capture because the same thing will happen. So if the white capture on g3, rook capture on g3, queen capture the g3, and then another rook from a8 comes to g8, which will attack the queen and the king on the g file. So after king goes to h8, we have moved bishop to g4, and then we have knight from g to e4. So bishop goes to f3, and rook capture g2, bishop capture g2, and then rook to g8. So bring the other rook into the game. So put the rook on the g file, and we can see 5 pawns for white and 6 pawns for black, which means that black is a pawn up. So we have rook to c2. After that, knight goes to c4, attack the pawn on the e3. So queen goes to h3, defend the pawn. After that, rook goes to g3, attacks the queen and support the attack on the e3. We have queen capture on f5. After that, knight capture e3, make a very strong attack on the queen, on the rook, and also on the bishop on the square g2. So queen gives a check on c8, and king goes to g7. Rook goes to e2. After that, knight goes to d6, attacks the queen, and we have queen to b8. After that, knight from d goes to f5. It is time to connect the knights, and also he tried to play something like knight to h4. One more time, attack the bishop on g2, which is pinned because he cannot go anywhere. So knight f3. After that, king goes to h6, which is very safe square for that king. So queen to c8. After that, we have queen to f6, and then king goes to h1. So queen goes to f7. Well, idea of that move, queen f7, is to move the queen on h5, which will give a check to king, and black can give us some checks after that, so he can win this game. So we have knight to g5. After that, queen gives a check on h5, bishop to h3. And it is time to sacrifice the rook, so rook capture on h3, and after knight capture on h3, black will not capture on h3 because that will result with a bad thing. So if queen capture, then rook goes to h2, and white will capture the queen on square h3. So black will not capture on h3, but he played one move which is winning move, but there's a better one. So he captured the rook on the square e2, but instead of that, there is a mate in a few moves which Tamir missed. So that move was queen on f3, which is a check to king, and that will force king to go up on h2. After that, queen needs to capture the rook with a tempo on square e2. It's a check to king, and if king goes to g1 or h1, then it is a mate in one move, just queen to g2. That will result with a mate. Or if he block the check with the knight, then that's just queen capture, and is the same thing. That will be mate on the square g2. But he missed that quick mate, so he played knight queen capture on the e2, and after that queen gives a few checks on the square f8 first one, and after king goes to h5, the second check on f7, and after that king goes to g4, and this is completely winning position for black because he tried to mate on the square g2 with the queen, and also this king attacks the knight on the square h3, and in this particular position White resigned because he has no good move to play. That was the game from the round 2 of Netanya Masters Tournament. I hope you enjoyed this game analysis, and let me know in the comment section if you like this, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.